Rick Pearson, we did have this sort of discussion on abortion. I want to turn our attention to the moderators. There was that one moment that we just saw on tape where they cut the mic. Did they do a good job? They did promise they would not be fact-checking, but there were a few.
Yeah, I think they did a very fair job here. And I will say, to the credit of both candidates, for the most part, they actually did try to get to the question that was asked. Now, not always, of course. I mean, certainly you had Vance going and switching direction to immigration following the major play of the Trump campaign. And he did have Governor Walz, I think, most comfortable when he would try to focus, when the attention became on focusing on Trump rather than trying to attack Vance. It was kind of the fatherly thing, talking about, I've been around a long time, and being able to try to provide historical context to certain things.
You know, Ray Lopez, I think on social media we're already seeing from Trump and Trump supporters that once again it was 3 against 1. The moderators were biased. Do you feel they were judicious in their use of fact-checking and that they were fair to both candidates?
No, I think this was a much better debate than what we saw with the president and the vice president a few weeks ago. I think that the moderators did a very good job trying to keep the pace going, trying to let people get their answers in, trying to allow for a timely rebuttal that didn't go off the rails as we saw happen in the presidential debate. But I think that there was definitely opportunities where the candidates themselves could really have dug in deeper on each other, particularly when it came to abortion or when it came to immigration, for example, and the failures of the administration to address that now. So I think that there were so much civility in a way that it kind of got in the way of answering some of these questions directly and concisely.
I think as civil and perhaps calm as it might have been throughout the debate, I do think J.D. Vance lost it in the end. I think an inability to accept the results of the election and to try to tell the American people that January 6th was peaceful and that Donald Trump was stable in that moment. He's asking us not to believe our own eyes, and that I think was the end of the debate, and also, the end of the question for him of who he really is. He showed us.
But is this an issue that is going to make that undecided voter say, you know what, I'm going to go this way in my choice because of what they're talking about with democracy?
Perhaps not the issue of democracy, but I think it reveals who J.D. Vance really is, and I think that carries over all issues. It showed that he was speaking to an audience of one, and at the end of the day, he's not going to take care of you. He's not going to care about what matters to you. He only needs to serve Donald Trump to succeed.
That audience of one, Rick Pearson, you think he's pleased with what he saw tonight? We saw him tweet out a eulogy for Pete Rose and demanding he be put into the Hall of Fame.
Well, the campaign issued their statement saying that this was the greatest performance by a vice presidential candidate in history. So I assume they're pretty
Maybe it was better than Dan Quayle. I don't know.
I assume they're pretty satisfied. But again, nothing that would embarrass Donald Trump. But I do agree, this whole issue of democracy and not addressing January 6th and instead trying to change the subject into Facebook censorship is, I mean, we all know what happened on January 6th.
Apples and oranges.
And then to talk about, well, Donald Trump allowed January 20th that Joe Biden took over. He didn't even show up at the inauguration.
It's such a self-evident answer, and for him to avoid it with such nonsense, I think, is so revealing.
By the way, Ray, while you're collecting your thoughts here, I believe we have a live look into the spin room tonight. You know that it's going to be spun both ways. There you go. Wow, that looks like a watch party in and of itself. We know that Governor J.B. Pritzker is there. If we see anyone notable stepping up to the mic, including Illinois' governor, we will cut over to them and see what they have to say. But
that
Ray,
is the CBS cafeteria, by the way.
Oh, it sounds like you've been there before. I have never.
All the notables are here right now. I just want to say we are here. But I think that as somebody who's run for office, not being able to say when you lost, that really sticks to people. And when you're going against a coach, I think, the governor said it best. You know when you're on the team, when you're on the field, you win, lose, you know how to shake your opponent's hand. And for all of us who've ever done any kind of sport, you know at the end of the game, you walk down the line, shake each other's hands, good game, see you next week. And it's really telling when you can't do that. It's a character flaw when you can't do that. And I think that whatever the motivation is, whether it's to appease Donald Trump, whether it's to appease the far right that refuses to accept defeat, or just trying to position himself for 2028, it's wrong. And I think that's really, for me personally, where seeing this performance play out, you know, you lose all kind of credibility when your morals come into question. And when you're trying to stand up there as the moral candidate from whatever view you're trying to pontificate from, you just lost all credibility.
Well, I agree with you on that, Alderman. Like, this was a performance by J.D. Vance. At the very beginning, he was very slick. That has gotten him into a lot of rooms before. He may have even been convincing to some people. But I think it was a performance, and at the end, we saw who he was performing for.
At the end of the day, though, will anyone remember anything from this debate, Rick Pearson? We know things get sliced up and cut up and sent out into the social media world. What's gonna be the meme coming from this debate?
Well, I do think, one, on the issue of abortion, if not for the Harris campaign, it'll be Emily's List or other abortion rights groups will be slicing and dicing that as video that will just keep running. But I also, and going back to the January 6th reference, I mean, that's the last thing that Republicans really want to be talking about. And then to fumble the ball in football parlance like that I wouldn't be surprised to see, like the Lincoln Project or something, run with that going forward in support of Harris.
All right, we have just a minute left for our final thoughts. Aviva Bowen, let's bookmark this. Well, what are your final takeaways?
I remain of the belief that J.D. Vance is a phony. And I think the one issue we didn't talk about was his answer tonight on guns, where he couldn't really commit to, to anything there. And then he introduced this idea of we just need better locks on the school doors. I think that's going to be one of the items that's clipped for social media tomorrow.
Rick Pearson?
Did it move the needle? I'm not so sure that it moved any needle, but it certainly provides fodder for both campaigns to push their messaging, the messaging that they want to push.
Ray Lopez.
I don't think any minds were changed by tonight. I don't even know if you won any undecideds tonight, but what I do know wasn't discussed, which is on everyone's mind, is immigration. And to just barely touch on 27 million people who are without a future that's defined will hurt in a lot of the swing states that we need some definition.
What did you want to hear on that?
I personally wanted to hear, what's the game plan? What are you going to do for the DACA and the undocumented that have been in this country for decades, ever since the Reagan amnesty, and have not had a clear path into this country, as well as what you're going to do for the several million asylum seekers who've manipulated our process to get into this country. Those are two answers that impact many of the core Democratic constituencies that we need to win in November, and you gave them no answer, and it's going to still stick in their minds that you don't want to talk about the mess that's been created.
All right.